Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget is a stop motion animated movie, Netflix original, that is a sequel to the 2000 movie Chicken Run. So, as I said, this is a sequel to a 2000 animated movie, which was also stop motion. I don't know if it was claymation or not. I can't remember. I want to say it was. So a lot of people might actually be familiar with that original movie. Like I said, it's been around over 20 years now, 23 years, and we finally got a sequel. So the first movie was very enjoyable. I remember watching it, and I've seen it a few times since it came out. I'm not a diehard fan where I watch it often, but I did enjoy the original movie. And this movie, if you enjoyed that original movie, you're definitely going to enjoy this one. This movie is very enjoyable and very likable. It does a lot of the stuff that the first movie did fantastically, and maybe in some ways a little bit better. So, quick recap of the first movie, which this movie does give you a recap just in case you're not even familiar with that movie. In the first movie, there was a bunch of chickens, the main character being Ginger, who were on this chicken farm, and they decided they wanted to escape before they turned into chicken pot pies. And I'm just giving a very vague, brief synapse of that movie. And one day, this rooster shows up, Rocky, who tricks him into thinking that he can teach him how to fly. And it turns out to be, he's just faking and lying to them because they treat him so well. But by the end of the movie, they end up making up, and they end up escaping from the chicken farm from this evil farmer lady named Miss Tweedy. And they essentially live happily ever after. And this movie picks up right after that movie, where they're on this secluded island, living their happily ever after, not worrying about humans or anything like that, or being captured to be turned into food. And they eventually have a child named Molly. And Molly is very rebellious and energetic, and she's a lot like her mom Ginger, where she doesn't like to be caged. Because in this movie, while they might not be in a cage, or, a cage against their will, they kind of created their own cage. Most of the chickens are happy, but they don't leave the island. They don't allow Molly to know anything about the outside world and everything, and she's kind of captivated by it. So this kind of sets up the movie plot. She eventually decides to rebel and go off the island, and ends up getting captured and taken to this chicken farm that's going to turn everyone into nuggets. And Ginger and Rocky team up with their other chickens from their previous farm to try to break her out. And that's pretty much the premise. The premise of this movie, where they're trying to break into the chicken farm this time to save their daughter instead of breaking out. There's a lot more to it, but that's like the basic premise without giving away a lot of spoilers. So like I said, it's a fantastic movie. It's very enjoyable. It's fun, well animated. I had a good time. It was really good. I don't know if I like it better than the first movie, because like again, I haven't seen that first one in a while. But it's a very solid movie, and I think it's a very solid sequel, which, you don't always often get with sequels. And it does a little bit of the same stuff that it did in the first movie, but it improves on it, and it really works in my opinion. Comedy, like I said, comedy is good. There's some good character moments that I feel don't land 100%, but they land pretty good. And the characters, Ginger, specifically her, she has kind of a little bit of a character arc, which I don't want to get into spoilers. But fantastic movie. I give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's like an hour and 40 minutes ish, maybe with credits. But it's really fantastic. It's a good watch. Just came out today, so check it out. Okay, so I'm going to talk spoilers for a little bit. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you haven't seen the movie, move on. Spoilers. So like I said, they're living on this island peacefully. Rocky and Ginger and the rest of the chickens from the previous movie, and Molly. And one day across their island, humans come and they build a road. And, Molly sees that there's a bunch of trucks with chickens on them, pointing with a thumbs up, and they're inside a basket. And her mom, in the first movie, she's very rebellious, and you think she's going to be like, hey, let's go free these chickens. But she calls this town meeting with the rest of the chickens, and she's like, we need to hide. Because the one thing about having a child has changed her, that, first of all, she's dealing with trauma from the first movie, that she almost got murdered and her friends almost all got murdered. but she's also really just scared for her daughter. She doesn't want her in the outside world. She doesn't want to be her to be captured and turned into food. So she's kind of very scared. So instead of deciding to go out and save these chickens, she decides that we're going to hide, which is kind of very against her character from the first movie, but it really makes sense. And this is her journey, that she learns to kind of move past that she kind of needs to let her daughter out into the real world and teach her about the dangers of it, and not just keep her cooped up in a cage, essentially. So, like I said, her daughter ends up running away, and she meets this other chicken named Frizzle, who's running after these trucks as well. And they end up getting captured by the trucks, kind of willingly, because they think it's going to be a fun place. They're like, look at the chickens on the truck, you know, they look happy, they have their own little baskets, you know, it looks amazing. So they end up getting taken to the chicken farm, which is kind of the reverse of the first chicken farm. The first chicken farm was just like a concentration camp with a bunch of little small things and wired fences and everything. Very horrible place to live, but they get put into this place where it's fantastic. It looks all happy and joyous, and all the chickens have all these things to play around with, and it looks like a good, fun place. But they also have these collars on them that we learn kind of make them dumb and happy and mindless, essentially. So a lot of the chickens there are just pretty much brainwashed to be happy, while Molly and her friend Frizzle, they manage to avoid having collars put on. So they're kind of like, what's going on? Why? At first they're having a fun time and it's fantastic, but they realize that something's wrong with the rest of the chickens, and that this place they're at is fake. They notice all the fake structures and everything. They're like, this is very wrong. So they decide they want to leave, but they end up getting spotted by the head scientist of this facility, Dr. Fry, who ends up putting on collar and Frizzle. So it ends up with Molly just kind of being sad and scared that she's like, what am I going to do? So while they're in there, her family is trying to break in. So Rocky launches himself over the fence into this facility, and he doesn't get captured, but he ends up in it, like in the trash area, and he's just trying to make his way into it to try to find Molly. And the rest of the chickens come up with this amazing plan to actually break in properly, and they do. And eventually, Rocky, Molly, and Ginger end up in this, I think it's the control room with everything in it. And the main villain from the first movie ends up showing up. She kind of showed up a little earlier, but she shows up, and she captures Ginger, and she's about to she puts her in a collar, which, you know, brainwashes her for a little bit. But Molly's able to save her without getting the collar off, and Rocky distracts Miss Tweedy and her security guards, so they're able to escape. And they eventually meet up with the other chickens and Rocky, and they end up getting trapped in a silo, which they're very sad and they can't escape. And this is where a lot of the emotional moments come in, where Molly's like, just like, this is my fault. If I didn't want to escape, you know, we wouldn't be in this situation. And then Rocky goes and says, like, no, it's my fault that I put all these stories about my life in the past into your head, and it made you want to escape. But then Ginger's just like, no, this is on me. You know, I wasn't happy being stuck in a cage when I was younger, or, you know, I don't, it's not something I enjoyed, but I ended up putting you, Molly, in a cage. So this is my fault by doing that. You know, I forced this upon us, which is a good, nice family moment. I just want to backpedal a little bit because I forgot. They do reveal the plan, which is that they're going to turn all the chickens into chicken nuggets, which is kind of obvious. There's a scene which is kind of scary where they activate one of the collars of the chicken who gets chosen, and she willingly walks into, because she has the collars controlling her, into this machine that turns her into chicken nuggets, and it's a little bit horrifying if I'm telling the truth. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is kind of like she willingly killed herself and now this guy's eating it, you know. But anyway, they're stuck in this corn silo, and then, you know, Rocky's just like, I have an idea, let's turn this stuff into popcorn, which was brought up earlier, but I didn't mention that popcorn, like, he loves popcorn, and he's just like, it solves all of life's problems. So they get a firework and they light it, and it, you know, makes all the popcorn, and they're able to escape. And they're about to, you know, escape, and Molly's really sad because she's like, well, my friend's still there, and all those other chickens. And this is where Ginger finally snaps out of her, being afraid and everything. She's like, no, we're gonna save Frizzle and we're gonna save all the other chickens. So they come up with a plan to save all the other chickens, but it doesn't end up working, of course. But eventually they're able to disarm the callers to free the chickens from being mind control and end up defeating Miss Tweedy. At first I thought she died. She ends up falling into the chicken nugget or the chicken nugget thing, and I'm just like, oh my god, did they just kill her and turn her into nuggets? But she ends up surviving and chases the chickens on a truck, which all the chickens load up in a truck to take off. But she ends up getting knocked into this moat that was in front of the facility, and there's all these little robotic ducks that I think explode and kill her, or at least they explode on her, and then the rest of the facility explodes. So the movie ends happily ever after with the chickens now on the island, happily living there, and they're like, "Oh, this is our happily ever after," and then Ginger's like, "No, this is our happily ever beginning," or something like that. But the movie ends with the chickens apparently deciding that instead of just being happily on their island, that they're going out and finding out more chicken facilities that are capturing chickens and turning them to food to free them. So the movie ends with all the chickens going to this new facility and just like getting ready to raid it, and then it ends. The end, which was a lot of fun. So I don't think they're necessarily trying to set up sequels. I think it's just supposed to be like a fun ending where it's just like they're not content with just being happy themselves. They're gonna free the rest of the chickens. So it might make for a good sequel though, Chicken Apocalypse, where all the chickens are escaped and people are just like crazy or something. I don't know. But good enjoyable movie. Like I said, I do recommend it. It has some good emotional moments. Very funny, and I like the animation. I like the quirkiness of how they break in and everything, and I love their world. It's a very fantastic movie. Like I said, if you like the first movie, you're gonna love this one. It's a good movie. So that's it. If you watch this movie, did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.